So we'll be moving on to the fifth module. We have a fifth and sixth module to cover, and after that the portions is done. So it's the vocabulary and grammar for academic writing. So the unit vocabulary and grammar for writing, this particular session, he will help you to understand what is the importance of vocabulary and how grammar is going to help your writing, your academic writing. So when you do an academic writing, it is very important that you maintain tense. Like if you are using present tense, that same tense should be continued throughout the the paragraph or throughout the article. In a sentence or in a paragraph, make sure that the tense which you are using is constant. Like don't write the first sentence in present and the next sentence in past. That particular tense that you use should be constant. Then another thing is you should avoid colloquial uses, colloquial styles, slangs, expressions, which are considered non-academic. So putting those kind of words into your academic writing is not acceptable, and also non-standard and conversational style. Like if you're going to write an academic writing like the way we speak, it is not acceptable. So when you do there's a lot of difference between writing and academic writing. Academic writing is for it's for academics, so there should be a certain rules and regulations, and there are certain words that can be used, that certain words cannot be used. You should avoid using short forms, so such things are there. So you should be very careful about all this. So if you do a revision after you do your piece of writing, if you do a revision, it will be really helpful for you to understand the mistakes that you have made in that piece of writing. So this revision part is also very important. In regard of doing an academic writing, you should be familiar with academic word list. It's called AWL. So these are like an amount of words which you can use for academic writing. It'll help you to pick the right words for your writing, and then you are supposed to avoid informal words like that, those ones we use in casual conversations. And it's also necessary that you when you're writing a good piece of something, it should not be very wordy. Means you need not put a lot of words into it. It should be crisp and clear. Only very necessary words should be used, or else it will be very big and it will be very boring. And so make sure that you use accurate words to convey your idea or concept. So academic words list. The high frequency words in academic works in English language are referred as academic word list. A list of words is actually given in your textbook, so please do refer it. It's like it's not the ella words are not, but there are certain words. So please do refer to understand what AWL is better. So basically, it's a high frequency words that is being used in academic writing. Now I just mentioned that you can use words from AWL, but there are certain words that you have to avoid. So some of them are slang expressions, contracted forms like can't, doesn't, which is a contracted form of cannot and does not, and all of these should be avoided. Then slang expressions like dude, cool, like all these are a certain kind of slang that we use in like in our language, in English. And also highly subjective expression. Oh, it's beautiful, horrible, which is your viewpoint. And when you write a piece of article, it should not be from it should be basically objective, not very much subjective. So such things also should be avoided. And also it should be gender neutral. Like you are not supposed to use policeman or chairman. All these are gender specific. When you're writing a piece of article, it should be gender neutral. So instead of chairman, you could use chairperson, which is a gender neutral term for chairman. There is also the use of discourse markers. Discourse is a unit of language longer than a sentence. It may be one or two sentences, or lengthy piece of writing. Now, there are discourse markers. Like, discourse markers are those words or phrases which are used to connect one discourse to another. Like, for example, if you're planning to connect two sentences, there should be a linking word. Like, for example, let's take for example, in informal conversations, we talk something and then we'll connect one sentence to another by using like I think, actually. അപ്പോൾ ഇതൊരു കണക്റ്റിംഗ് വേർഡായിട്ട് രണ്ട് സെൻറ്റൻസിനെ കണക്ട് ചെയ്യാനായിട്ട് യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്ന വേർഡാണ് ഈ പറയുന്ന ഡിസ്കോഴ്സ് മാർക്കേഴ്സ്. ഇറ്റ്സ് ലൈക്ക് എ ലിങ്കിങ് വേർഡ് ഓർ എ സെൻറ്റൻസ് കണക്ടർ that can be used to connect one sentence to the another one. Like, so in our formal writings we use however as a result. All of this can be used. Like for example, if I am using in my research article, the sentence goes like this: these results are in line with previous studies, however, and then I might use another sentence. So this however is connecting the first part of the sentence to the another sentence. So this is called as a discourse marker. So why do we use discourse markers? It's balance contrasting ideas, introduce a new idea, present a counter argument, or add something else, changing the subject, summing up. For all these things we can use discourse markers. Now, completeness of sentence. Now, what makes a sentence complete? A sentence is a group of words arranged properly to make a sense. It is the basic unit of language. It starts with capital letter and ends with full stop, exclamation, or question mark. That is something we all know. A sentence contains a subject and a verb. A clause contains a subject and predicate, and it is the smallest grammatical unit that can express complete proposition. Now, what is an independent clause? An independent clause, or a group of words that can stand alone as an independent thought, is a complete sentence, whereas a dependent clause does not make a complete sentence, so it cannot stand alone. A dependent clause is also called a subordinate clause. Example, when I was at school. So this particular sentence cannot stand on its own. When I was at school, what happened? There are a lot of questions that have to be answered. So that is a dependent clause. Now, when it comes to an independent clause, that particular clause can stand on its own. A group of words, this group of words can stand on its own. But dependent clause will always be dependent on something else. I'll tell you another example. Like, Jane went to the park after she finished school. So over here, Jane went to the park is an independent clause, which means this particular sentence can stand on its own. This particular group of words, Jane went to the park. But at the same time, the next part, that is after he finished school, is the dependent clause. Because when you say after she finished school, what happened? There are still questions that is to be answered. It cannot stand on its own. When you tell that after she finished school, okay, yeah, after she finished school, what happened? So that is the reason why it is a dependent clause, which means that it doesn't make sense on its own. That sentence cannot make any sense on its own. To make sense, it has to depend on something else. But whereas the first part, that is Jane went to the park, it does make sense. So that is the reason why it is independent clause. Now, there are a few more things. The first one is simple sentence, which contain only one independent clause. Susanna sang a song. Now, compound sentence will have two independent clause or simple sentence. That is, Susanna sang melodiously, and her song was well appreciated. So over here, you can see that the first part, Susanna sang melodiously, it can stand on its own. In the same way, her song was well appreciated, can stand on its own. So independent sentences. Now, complex sentences where one independent clause and one or more dependent clause connected to it. Let's see that. Example is, because I was engrossed in the song sung by Susanna, I did not notice the arrival of the bus. Okay, so here, I did not notice the arrival of the bus because I was engrossed in the song sung by Susanna. These are the two parts of the sentences. Over here, the second part is the independent clause. I did not notice the arrival of the bus. Yes, it does make sense. Without without the help of any other words, this group of words, this clause does make sense. But the first part, because I was engrossed in the song sung by Susanna, if we ignore this section, like if you remove this particular, one second, if you remove this particular section, now when you read just this, does it make any sense? Because I was engrossed into song sung by Susanna, it doesn't make any sense. Okay, what happened that while you were engrossed in her song, what happened? So on its own it cannot stand, so this becomes the dependent clause. Now if you apply, sorry, one second, yeah, so in case if we remove this particular thing, this particular part of the sentence, I did not notice the arrival of the bus. Okay, it does make sense. It does make sense. So this is called as yeah. So I hope you got the difference between dependent clause, independent clause, and how it makes a complex sentence. So in complex sentence, one should be dependent clause, and there should also be one or more. So one independent clause and one or more dependent clause should be there to make a sentence a complex sentence. Now there is one more thing, that is compound complex sentence, in which there will be two or more independent clause and one or more dependent clause. I was in the bus station waiting for a bus that passes through my village, and I got an opportunity to listen to Susanna's song. I think I have explained what independent and dependent clauses clearly. So for this particular sentence, please do analyze and find which is the dependent clause and which is the independent clause. So I hope it is clear. In compound, there will be two or more independent clause and one or more dependent clause. In complex sentence, there will be only one dependent clause and there will be one or more dependent clause. And in compound sentence, there will be two independent clauses, and in simple sentence there will be one independent clause. Now there is something called as fragments. So fragments are incomplete sentences or some disconnected piece of writing. Now we'll see an example. I am planning to go for a new phone, full stop. The one I'm using is dead slow. So now there is no connection between these two sentences. So this is what we call as fragments. So how can we avoid fragments? We can avoid fragments by using some kind of linking words. For example, a revised version. That means how we can avoid fragments. I am planning to go for a new phone because the one I am using is dead slow. See, over here we are using the word because, and we are connecting these two sentences. So this is how we can avoid fragments and how we can connect sentences. Connect two sentences, and we can avoid fragments. And this is needed in academic writing because fragmented sentences will not always make sense. So the easiest way for avoiding fragments are, you are supposed to remove the full stop, and you can connect two sentences by using some kind of linking words. Like for example, over here we are using because, and now the second part, and now the second section, this section makes much more meaning than the first section. The first section, it's very much fragmented. This particular part is not connected to the other one, but over here when we read the full sentence, it does make sense and it is connected. So that is about fragments. Fragments can be avoided by using some kind of a linking words to connect two fragmented sentences.